All right, party people. Let's get started. Let me adjust my mic a little bit. There we go. Try to keep it straight. Um, I will be reading from Genesis chapter 40 today. That's NASB. Genesis chapter 40 NASB. And we will start right now. Let's get into it. It's only about 20 verses or so, but we'll read the whole text. So, verse 1. Then it came about after these things that the cupbearer and baker for the king of Egypt, that's the Pharaoh, offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was furious with the two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. So he put them in confinement in the house of the captain of the bodyguard, in the prison, the same place where Joseph was in prison. And the captain of the bodyguard put Joseph in charge of them, and he took care of them, and they were in confinement for some time. Then the cupbearer and the baker for the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, both had a dream the same night, each man with his own dream, and each dream with his own interpretation. When Joseph came to them in the morning and saw them, behold, they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were with him in confinement in his master's house, "Why are your faces so sad today?" And they said to him, "We have had a dream, and there is no one to interpret it." Then Joseph said to them, "Do interpretations not come from God? Tell it to me, please." Verse 9. So the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph, saying to him, "In my dream, behold, there was a vine in front of me, and on the vine there were three branches. And as it was budding, its blossom came out, and the clusters produced ripe grapes. Now Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, so I took the grapes and squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup. I put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. Then Joseph said to him, "This is the interpretation of it. The three branches are 3 days. Within 3 more days, Pharaoh will lift your head and restore you to your office, and you will put Pharaoh's cup into his hand as in your former practice when you were cupbearer. Only keep me in mind when things go well with you. But please do me kindness by mentioning me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. For I was in fact kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing that they should have put me into the dungeon." Verse 16. When the chief baker saw that he had interpreted favorably, he said to Joseph, "I also saw in my dream, and behold, there were 3 baskets of white bread on my head, and in the top basket there were some of all kinds of baked foods for Pharaoh, and the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head." Then Joseph answered and said, This is its interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 more days, Pharaoh will lift your head up from you and will hang you on a wooden post, and the birds will eat your flesh off you." That's a troubling dream. So it came about on the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he held a feast for all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief cupbearer to his office, and he put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And he hanged the chief baker just as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. Interesting text. Interesting text. This is chapter 40 out of the book of Genesis. And we see a lot of things going on here. Before we get to the text, I'll also want to take, for those who don't know or who aren't too aware or maybe have forgotten, let's go over Joseph's story very quickly. In Joseph's story, we have a young man who has several brothers. He's one of the younger brothers. I believe Joseph has a few. I believe two, if my memory serves me correctly. We probably have to go back a couple chapters to verify, but I think he has two younger brothers. One of them named Manasseh. Um, so Joseph, as a young man, sort of gets into a tiff with his family, and his brothers actually commit heinous acts of violence against him, almost kill him. But one of the elder brothers tells the group to stop before they do any more damage or greater damage. And they, instead of killing him, murdering him, they send him off to slavery to Egypt. So he becomes a slave in Egypt in the captain of the bodyguard's house. So this is one of Pharaoh's, the king's top officials. It's interesting how he gets tossed into slavery, but at the same time, he is put in the home, or excuse me, the home of a high status official. Isn't that interesting how God works behind the scenes? He's a slave, but look where he's placed. He's in a different country, different language, different culture. So he has a lot of learning to do and a lot of development there. But he's still in the house of a man who's prosperous. So it's interesting how God works that. While he's there for a number of years as a slave, and he sort of works his way up to be, I guess you can say, the man in charge of the house. The captain of the bodyguard, or the lead official, one of Pharaoh or the king of Egypt's, close confidants, I think you could say. In today's world, the president of the United States has a cabinet, so I think you could say the captain of the bodyguard would have been in the Pharaoh of Egypt, his cabinet. If we wanted to give a metaphor or an analogy. So, he is in this house. He grows and matures and develops himself. The Lord is with him, and he makes his way up to be one of, if not we can say he's the chief overseer of Potiphar's home, which is Potiphar is the name of the captain of the bodyguard. And Joseph is becoming prosperous. He even as a slave, he has some status in the home he's in. He's actually running the show, quote unquote, taking care of all of the needs of the home. This is, I guess you can call him, let's go back to the original name, a man of status and a man of means. So he's running it. He's the CEO of the home. Not too long after probably becoming CEO and running things, Potiphar's wife actually attempts to seduce Joseph. And Joseph, being a good man, a man of honor, pushes her away, actually flees the house and leaves his coat. This is the second time where we see a coat manifest in Joseph's life, and it gets him into trouble, for lack of a better term. He leaves his coat in the house, and Potiphar's wife creates a lie, actually a wicked scheme, and suggests that Joseph tried to assault her in some sort of intimate way, which was an absolute lie. I think Potiphar knew a bit about his wife because he didn't send. Excuse me, let me repeat that. I think Potiphar didn't believe the lie. I think he probably understood that what was being said was a lie, because Joseph is still a slave. Even though he's managing the home, he's still a slave. So Potiphar could have just killed him. He's a slave. he has no rights. He's a slave. Okay, he's thought of as property during this time in the world. So Potiphar, he could have easily just disposed of Joseph, gotten rid of him, taken his life, etc., etc. But he didn't. I'm sure he knew it was a lie. I'm sure he knew that his wife was probably a bit loose to a certain extent, for lack of a better term. Let's keep it PC. Potiphar's wife was a bit loose. So instead of murdering the man, he sends him to a dungeon. He sends him to a jail. And once again, after some time in the jail, the Lord is with Joseph, and Joseph rises to the top, and becomes the CEO of the jail, and he's running the jail. He always finds himself getting back to the top, which is very, very interesting, that we see that about Joseph. Okay. So now, when we enter Genesis chapter 40, we have all of that backstory, and we see that I haven't been speaking too long, and we see that there are two gentlemen that enter the dungeon, which is owned or led by the captain of the bodyguard and monitored by Joseph. Um, we see that these two men have sort of not appeased the Pharaoh. So you have the baker and the cupbearer. These are the chief baker and the chief cupbearer. The people who take care of Pharaoh, probably organize his parties, organize his gatherings, put on displays for the Pharaoh in front of different dignitaries or his friends and his family. But they have made him upset. We do not know the reason why, but all we know is that they've made him upset. They've done something evil. When we look at this text, I want to say, let me look at these notes. Not only did God bless Joseph wherever he went, whether he was a slave, whether he was in a dungeon, even when he was in his father's home, I think that's part of the reasons why there was so much envy and jealousy around Joseph among his brothers, because God was blessing him. That's not to say he wasn't blessing the other family members too, but they probably noticed his blessings and his dreams. Um, but I think we should take a moment and look at that. God blessed Joseph wherever he went. God took care of him wherever he went, even when he was as a slave, when he was a slave, which is terrible. It sucks. And when he was a prisoner, which sucks as well. But God was with him because he kept rising to the top. He kept rising to the top. The next thing, while Joseph was in prison and a slave, he was a problem solver. Joseph was a problem solver. Um, you not only can help yourself as a problem solver, but as a problem solver, you can help others who are willing to take or accept your skills, accept your abilities. Okay. Problem solvers, let's skip to the modern day right now, our personal lives. Let's make this personal. When you solve problems, people come to you. When you solve problems, people seek you out. When you solve problems, people want your assistance. Okay. Being a problem solver is such a great thing, especially in the working world. Okay, so when you go to your job, wherever you work, or if you are creating a nonprofit or a company, et cetera, the more problems you can solve or have the ability to solve, typically the more pain or pressure or stress you have to deal with. Typically, but the better problem solver you become, the more rewards we typically see. Okay, the people who are receiving the most income from the job, the people who typically get the most respect at the job, the people who typically have decision making ability at the job, the people who have great influence at the job, et cetera, are typically the people who are solving the most problems or the biggest problems. Okay? Problem solving is huge. You want to be able to solve problems. So, in your life, let's say today, you keep seeing problem after problem after problem show up, and you're thinking, how do I deal with all of these things going on in my life? God might be preparing you for a promotion. It might not be this week, this month, this year, but God might be getting you ready to handle promotion, because the higher you go up in the working world, the more problems you're going to face and the more problems you're going to have to deal with. Those problems will have bigger consequences. Your actions will have bigger consequences. So this thought just popped in my head. There's a great speaker. I think that Tony Robbins, I think, said this once. Problems are a sign of life. And in a book I read from a pastor, he said the only people who don't have problems are the people in the cemetery. Let me say that again. The only people who don't have problems are the people in the cemetery. So problems are a sign of life. Okay? Problems are a sign of life. Now, moving on. Let me check my notes here. The two men, let's look at the text. The two men are positioned in the same place as Joseph. That's one thing they have in common. The two men have a dream on the exact same night. Okay? the two men are in the same place as Joseph. The two men, we forgot about this, both angered the Pharaoh. The two men have a dream on the same night. And also, we saw in the text that the two men both were dejected. I think the text says they were dejected in the morning. So Joseph could see their face, their emotions, their body language, and he went over to ask why. What's the issue? Um, I also want to note that before Joseph actually gave an interpretation for the dream, or some people like to call them visions. The only difference between a dream and a vision is the dream is when you're sleeping, the vision is when you're awake. You're getting a picture, right? It's like a movie playing in your head. But Joseph says pretty early on that the interpretation of the dream didn't come from him; it came from the Lord. It's not of his own making. So he gives glory and honor to who it's deserved. Okay. And again, how do I say this? God gave him this gift, and he he glorifies God with the gift. So I want to make a comment that when we have our own gifts and we have our own talents, we should be doing the same thing. All right, that's one thing we can definitely get from this text. Okay. The next thing is God gives us or speaks to us through our dreams and visions. God gives us or speaks to us through our dreams and visions. So I want to pause again and just very quickly not only think about my own dreams and visions that God's given me, but I want you to think about yours. So take a moment to think about that. And in the next moment, I want you to really think on or meditate on how you've been handling that dream. As soon as you receive that dream or vision, do you go talk about and tell people about it, which probably isn't always smart? That's how Joseph got himself into a situation. Part of it, not the whole thing. His brothers were envious because of his dreams and his goals and his ambition. Okay. This was an ambitious young man, which is nothing wrong with that as long as you keep it in check. There's nothing wrong with wanting to do well. God can bless you if you want to do well and you work hard for it. But God's going back to what I was saying before I get off on my tangent. God speaks to us through dreams and visions. So the dreams and visions you're currently having and the dreams and visions that I'm currently having, how are you stewarding those dreams and visions? Are you working towards them? Even if they're far off, even if it's a dream or a vision that's going to take years, are you working towards them? Are you studying for them? Or are you just blabbering off at the mouth and wasting time and energy? Or are you doing nothing? Okay. Whatever you're doing, try to continue to grow in that area and do better, even if you haven't started yet. Some of you all listening probably have a vision or have a dream and you haven't gotten to work on it yet. Hey, start studying, start researching. Don't be so mad at yourself. Don't be so dejected. Start taking your baby steps, okay? I want you to think about that, not just right now, but during the rest of your week. The next thing, when God gives us these visions and dreams and we take time to meditate on them to make sure that they're, how do I say this? To discern, that's the Bible word, right? A technical term. To discern if the dream or vision is from God, to discern if the dream or vision helps other people and not just myself, to discern if the dream is holy or wicked, okay? So what we want to actually do is after we get the dream or a vision, we want to meditate on it for a while and sort of design, if God doesn't give us an exact blueprint, sort of design what sort of steps we're going to take, okay? And after we do that, we still have to believe that the vision or dream will come to pass. We have to believe it. Now, sometimes we get a little shaky and we, might be lacking in our faith for a moment. We're all human. That happens. But you always want to come back to center, as they say in sports or when you're stretching or you're lifting weights, et cetera, et cetera. Come back to center after you've been exhausted. Come back to center after your faith is shaken a little bit. back to center after a few failures. The dream, if the dream or vision you have is from God, you can count on it coming true. It may take some time. You may have to do a bit of work. You may have to do a bit of research, but it'll come true. The next thing I noticed about Joseph and these dreams was that Joseph was unafraid to tell the truth. Joseph was unafraid to tell the truth. He told one man he get back to Pharaoh's house or the palace, and he, in essence, do well. And he told the other man that he'd go back to Pharaoh's palace, and in essence, he lose his life. So Joseph wasn't afraid to tell the truth. We don't have a lot of truth tellers these days. There's a lot of fear in the modern day. But I really respect Joseph for not just speaking his mind and not just his ability to, or his gifts and his talents and his abilities, but I think the biggest thing I see is his ability to tell the truth and speak with what the Lord had him speak, which can be very challenging at times. Very challenging. Picture yourself doing something like this with your family, or picture yourself doing something like this at work or with a close friend. Sometimes telling the truth can be difficult. Now, are you going to obey what what God's leading you to do, or are you going to disobey? And it seemed like during this time, Joseph was probably obeying, more than likely obeying. Um, and he probably had practice doing this before. This probably wasn't his first time because he does it so easily. It seems to be natural at this point. So he's had several opportunities. I would say, if we use some wisdom here, he's had several opportunities um, to learn how to use his gift and learn how to direct his gift before he just blurts off at the mouth. I think this passage, when I was reading it during my study time, I think this passage also teaches us not to rely on people too much. Don't rely on people too much. That's what I get from the passage, because uh, Joseph gave one of the individuals a very very favorable, um, how would we say, revelation, right? Joseph hears the two dreams. He gets a revelation from the Lord, and he gives them the revelation. So Joseph gives one of them a very, very favorable revelation. And in the text, I'm not going to read it again, but in the text, Joseph, this isn't verbatim, but Joseph basically says, hey, remember me when you get back to the palace, when you get back to the king of Egypt, when you speak to Pharaoh and you're back in his presence, tell him about my gifts, my talents. Tell him that I'm here because someone said I assaulted them. Tell him that I'm here because someone lied on me. Okay, tell him, help me out. He's sort of waving the white flag. Help me out. I haven't done anything wrong. I just helped you out. Repay the favor. But as we read in the text, at the end of the text, the cupbearer totally forgot about Joseph. Totally forgot about him. He didn't care. Well, I don't want to say he didn't care, but he totally forgot about him. So what does that tell us? Don't depend on people like that. Our ultimate confidence, our ultimate trust is supposed to go into God. Uh, Joseph has to trust God when his relatives tried to, uh, not try to assault him. Joseph has to trust God when he's a slave. Joseph has to trust God when he's in the dungeon. Joseph has to trust God for the revelation for these dreams. So I think what I get from this text, one of the biggest thing is don't rely on people, right? Don't rely on people to the extent, what I'm saying is, don't rely on people to the extent that you rely on God. Because if Joseph would have relied on his family, that's not good. If Joseph would have relied on the people in Potiphar's house that lied on him, that's a no go. Joseph's certainly not relying on anyone when he's in prison. Okay, that's where you really don't rely on people. Um, so I think this goes to show us that you do give certain trust to uh, family members that treat you well, a spouse, your children, your parents. You would like to believe, but no, everybody's human. Humans make errors. Humans make mistakes. No one's God. So you give that ultimate trust, that ultimate confidence in Jesus Christ, and everyone else is on a totally different level. That's what I think of when I read this passage. And I study Joseph's life. The next thing about the gift that Joseph had was, okay, he has the ability to interpret dreams, but he's not the person who caused these events to happen. So people who have gifts like this or talents like this and may be afraid of their gift or their talent, Joseph did not cause these events to happen. Though that's those individuals' own business. That's those individuals' own actions and beliefs, etc., etc. Joseph has the gift of um, revelation and interpretation. Okay, the dreams are uh, given to him. He gets a revelation. Makes an interpretation, and he can give that interpretation with great accuracy. Okay, to those who received a dream or a vision, etc., etc. The next thing I saw in the text was that Joseph was interested in helping other people. Okay, because in the text we see that once he sees the two individuals who are having a bad time, they're a bit dejected. Once he sees that they're having a difficulty, he brings his, remember we talked about problem solving earlier, he brings his problem solving skills to task, right? And he's seeking to help these people while they're all in prison. They're all in a bad situation. He sees they're dejected. He goes, uses his problem solving skills, helps these people. And then in chapters later, we'll see that the same people that he helped actually helped him. So that energy he put out, if we want to bring it into modern day language, that energy he put out, that helping energy, assisting energy, came back to him. Newton's third law, right? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The energy he put out was the energy he got back. He wanted to help someone, and he got helped. Last few things, and then we're done. Joseph, in the next few chapters, we'll see that Joseph becomes one of the most powerful people in the nation of Egypt. We'll probably study that next time. Joseph becomes one of the most powerful people in the nation of Egypt. And I think what I learned or what I interpreted from this text was that Joseph got promoted, but only after massive pain in learning how to problem solve and deal with problems, his own and others. I'm going to say that again. Joseph got promotion, but only after massive pain. He got a huge promotion. He's running the country. We'll see in the next chapter. But Joseph only got that promotion after massive pain, after massive discomfort. Okay? Discomfort and pain are typically the price for growth. Okay? The discomfort and pain of he went through with his family abusing him and assaulting him and turning their backs on him and lying about him. The pain he went through becoming a slave in someone else's house, going to another country, having to learn a new language, a new culture, then getting lied on again there. Then the pain and discomfort of having to leave that place and not just a slave, now a slave that's in a prison. That's a lot of pain, discomfort, and unease. But in the end, Joseph gets promoted and he's just a step below the king. He's running a country. He went from probably running his own house to Potiphar's house to running the prison to running the country. So the price for promotion was pain and discomfort. See you next week.